yesterday we wrote this down. Law of cosines is just like law of sines. We use it to find missing pieces in any triangle, so there is not a stipulation that it has to be a right triangle to use it. When we use law of sines, it's probably a little bit easier to use just because you have a basic ratio and you can cross multiply. But what do we have to have in order to be able to set up law of sines? Yes, and we have to have more specific. If I have one angle, I have to have the side across from it, right? I have to have either side A and angle A, or side B and angle B, or side C and angle C. I have to have a complete set of information. When we don't, we can use the law of cosines. So let's look at this example. Sorry, my picture isn't real amazing. We can draw a new one if we need to. So it says a surveyor wishes to find the distance between two inaccessible points, A and B, on opposite sides of a lake. So here's point A, here's point B. While standing at some third point C, she finds that side B is 259 meters, side A is 423 meters, and angle C is 132 degrees 40 minutes. We want to find side C. Can I do law of sines? The only angle I know is angle C. So to do law of sines, I would have to have side C, and I don't. So then we go to law of cosines. We have three different versions. The version you use is depending on the angle that you're given. So we had angle C. We were looking for side C. So which version are we doing? C squared equals A, 423, squared plus B, 259, squared minus 2 times A times B cosine C. What would you have to do to get C by itself? Square root. Would it be okay if I just go ahead and do the square root and put it all in my calculator like that? Normally, if you had a square root, you would do plus and minus, but if we're looking at this distance across, or distance between those points, it wouldn't be a negative. So make sure you are in degree mode. And we're just typing this big long thing in. Get? 628. Is that what you guys got?
I got 109,000.
Okay.
Oh, I know.
I'm kidding.
Let's do this one. Solve triangle ABC. So if I ask you to solve it, that means find everything. And we have angle A is 42.3 degrees. Side B is 12.9 meters. Side C is 15.4 meters. So is law of sines an option for us? No. So we have to do law of cosines. Which one should we use? So since we're going to solve for A, I'm just going to go ahead and do the square root of all of this. You guys get 10.47 for side A? I did keep an extra decimal there because I am going to use that to keep finding some numbers because I asked for the entire triangle. So at this point, I now know all of my sides. We have to find the remaining angles. We have a couple options. How could I find angle B, for instance? Could we do the law of sines now? We have a complete set. Alright. You just
Right down my shirt.
I did have paper towels in here. Oh, here's a few. Not that they do it.
Can you tell me about your water? What? Your water? Yeah.
I couldn't figure out if you were bleeding or what.
No.
Okay,
I don't know how that happened.
so we could do law of sines now. So since we have all the information for A, we would do A over sine A equals B over sine B. So then we have to cross multiply. Now, what do we have to consider? Sine is positive in both 1 and 2, so there could be two triangles. Get the reference angle, we do sine inverse. I'm just going to call that 56 degrees. So in triangle 1, that means angle B is 56 degrees. How would you find it in triangle 2? So 180 minus 56. Alright. If angle B is 56, then we could do C. 180 minus 42.3 minus 56. And the same thing in the other one. So far it looks like they both work, right? We didn't have any negative angles. The other thing that I've told you to check is the biggest angle always has to be across from the biggest side. Smallest angle across from the smallest side. So in the first triangle, A was my small side and C was my biggest. So angle C has to be the biggest and angle A has to be the smallest. Is that true in the first one? C is the biggest and A is the smallest? Is that true in the second one? No. Side C was the biggest, so that cannot be the smaller or the smallest angle. So that one does not work. There's only one triangle here.
How did you get 56 degrees?
Sine inverse.
Oh, that's why.
Yes.
Can you explain why A has to be this
Okay.
again?
So when we found our sides,
Okay.
side A was 10.47. So looking at these three, this was the smallest, so that means angle A has to be the smallest. Out of those three sides, this was the biggest side, so angle C has to be the biggest angle. You're welcome. Other questions? Let's we'll do one more for sure, and then if we need another one after that, we will. Looking, you find everything in triangle ABC. Side A is 9.47, side B 15.9, side C 21.2. So can I do law of sines? No, we don't have any angles. So law of cosines, we can find any of these first. It doesn't matter which. So which one do you want to use? So if we plug this in, what will I have to do to solve for angle A here? First I'll have to subtract the B squared and C squared. And we'll have to divide by the -2 times. Now, we have to find A. In which,
I have really messed up numbers.
in what quadrants is cosine positive? 1 and 4. If you're in quadrant 4, your angle is between 270 and 360, right? Is that possible in a triangle? No, so we're not going to have two triangles. We only have one. So it has to be in quadrant 1. So we just have to do the inverse. So you do cosine inverse of 0.90864, and we get what? 24.68 degrees, or 24.7 degrees. Okay. So now we have a triangle. Or part, we have an angle in our triangle. We need the other two angles still, right? What would I do to find the other angles? Okay. You have two options. We can do one of the other law of cosine formulas and repeat what we just did. Or we could do law of sines now that we have one of them. So if I went to law of sines now, I have all the information for A. Let's say I want to find C. Okay. So we get side A was 9.47. Yes,
Why is cosine not in quadrant 1?
because the two quadrants where it's positive are 1 and 4. But to be in quadrant 4, you have to be between 270 and 360 degrees. In a triangle, your angles all have to be smaller than 180. So that wouldn't be possible. Okay, so if I do this, do I have to consider the two quadrants for C? Yes, because sine is positive in 1 and 2, and those are both less than 180. Alright, let's see if both of these are really a possibility. So if you do your reference angle, sine inverse, so we get 69.2 degrees. So then we could find angle B in either of these by doing 180 minus the angles we have. Which angle has to be the biggest in this triangle? C has to be the biggest. Which one has to be the smallest? A. So do all of these meet the requirements? Which one? The first one. When we look, angle B was the biggest angle, not angle C. So it's actually this triangle. Depending on which side you solve for, you may or may not get to this point where you have two triangles. So there are lots of different ways we can solve these in lots of different orders. But you should always be able to verify at the end if your answer makes sense or not. Any questions there? Okay. You guys, why don't we stop and give you guys time to work? That way you can ask questions. So, on these, slight modification, problems 1 and 5, there's a part A and B. You don't need to do part A. So you're doing part 1, B only, and number 5, B only. They're just asking, would you start with law of sines or law of cosines? And then we're doing every other odd. We've got over 20 minutes right now.